welcome. Spreadsheet Geek here. Today I want to run through how I run the stock market challenge in my class with spreadsheets. And I know that there are a lot of different ways to run a stock market challenge, and um, and there's websites that allow the students to continuously trade and buy fractional shares and probably simulate the stock market a little better than the spreadsheet does. And if you've used those tools and you're comfortable with those tools, that's great. I like to use, if I'm teaching spreadsheets, I definitely like to use spreadsheets. If spreadsheets are a part of the curriculum, I like to run my stock market challenge with spreadsheets. The reason being that it shows the students, number one, how the data in a spreadsheet can change. So the prices of a stock are always changing. So my current price column here is constantly changing. As students look up the prices, this data in column F is going to be changing. However often you choose to look up prices, whether that's once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever, that those prices are going to change, and that's going to change what your spreadsheet shows. And so I think that's a good lesson in how spreadsheets can be useful when the data changes, as a tool to see what effects those changes in data are going to have. So I really like that. I also really like when students are picking their stocks and they're determining how many shares to buy. That's a big game of what if. And I really like that what if analysis that it will allow students to do when they pick how many shares they want to buy, whether it's 5 shares or 6 shares or 10 shares or 20 shares. That will definitely have an effect on the beginning investment. And I think that's important for students to play that what if game and to make those changes, because that's really the power of spreadsheets. So I think this lesson, doing the stock market challenge with spreadsheets, helps drive that home, and that's important to me, and I think it's an important outcome, and I like what it does. I wouldn't be telling you guys about it if I didn't like it. So what I'll do on day one, you will see in the description, you're going to see a link to a presentation. I will go through that presentation on day one. Pick and choose what you want to use, make a copy of it, and feel free to rip it up and get rid of stuff that you don't want, include new stuff that you do want. But I will go through that on day one with the first 20 minutes to half hour. I'll explain what the stock market is. I will go through what I know about the stock market. I'll ask students what they know about the stock market, and I'll try to dispose any myths that come up, reinforce any truths that I hear. Stick with your comfort zone if you know a lot about the market, and if you're an investor and you have some insight, this is a great time to include that. But I will run through that presentation. Let's see. Over here on this tab, I will run through that presentation on day one. There are 10 slides in here. I do think that it's important to focus on slide number 2 here. I was in some online forum where I was having a discussion about the stock market challenge with other business teachers, and there was a teacher there that said that they never run the stock market challenge and they're against it because they don't like the habits that it teaches. And I completely agree with this. Wholeheartedly. The stock market should be viewed as a long-term investment. If somebody's going to get into the stock market, they should be prepared to leave their money there for a long time. And even though a student might consider 6, 8, 10 weeks a long time, that's not what we're talking about for the market. We're talking about years and years and years. So I do, kind of the way I resolve that is I do like to run the challenge, but I definitely talk about a disclaimer that this is a game, and we're going to learn a little bit about the stock market, but this is not how you should invest in the stock market. You don't enter it as a challenge to beat other investors in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks. You do it so you can leave your money there for a long time and watch it grow. So this disclaimer is important to me, and I spend some time talking about it, and hopefully students understand at the end of this that we're playing a game. We're going to learn a little bit about the stock market, but this doesn't mean I should take my college savings and put it all in the stock market and when I need it next year to go to school, right? So I will run through this presentation, and talk about what the stock market is. At the end of the presentation, I go over some of the ground rules that they're going to have $10,000 to spend, and that they are going to leave it there from this point until the end of class. And at the end of class, we're going to see how much our stocks are worth. Um, Slide 10 in this presentation, I will show when the students are picking their stocks, just as an inspiration. They're going to see some companies that they're familiar with. Sometimes they have trouble thinking of companies that they might want to invest in. So I will put this up there when they're picking their companies, and hopefully that serves as some inspiration. And they can go in any direction they want. My rules are it's got to be a publicly traded stock. I don't let them invest in funds because I like to focus on businesses, and I like to talk later on. I like to talk about business news. So I don't let them use funds. I might explain what a fund is, but I don't let them use funds, whether it's an index fund or an ETF or a mutual fund or whatever. I don't let them use that. I definitely don't let them use cryptocurrencies. You'll get students that'll want to, but I don't let them use cryptocurrencies. Um, I'm generally, if you find other stuff like commodities or bonds or whatever, I like to stick to just stocks. So that's my rule. Maybe you could change that if you want to, but I like to stick to just stocks. So what we'll do on day one, I'll go over what the challenge is, give them a little bit of information that I know what they're going to be doing, and I will give them access to this template that I have. And the template's got Ford in there, like I said. But they're going to be picking other companies, so their job is to fill that out. Usually, I would say one day isn't quite enough for this step. I usually give the presentation and talk about the challenge. That takes 20 minutes to a half hour, and then I'll give some students time to research. And to ask them to be done with that in 55 minutes or whatever, usually I don't have many students that are satisfied with what they have. So usually we'll start on day one, and then we'll move forward into day two. Between days 1 and 2, I'll say, think about some other companies that you might want to invest in between today and tomorrow. Be ready at the start of tomorrow to finish that up. And maybe on day 2, it might take 10 or 15 minutes more of research. But definitely on day 2, when the students kind of finish things out, they should be playing around with those number of shares to see how close they can get to $10,000. So this is where they play that what if game. What if I buy 7 shares of this versus 8? What if I buy 10 shares of this one and 12 shares of this one? What if I reverse that and buy 12 shares of that and 10 shares of this? What if I sacrifice 3 shares of this so that I can buy 5 shares of this? So that what if game that students can play to get as close to 10,000 as they can, I think is really important. It allows them to see that spreadsheets can keep updating that and recalculating for you, and that's a really valuable skill. So I will encourage students to get as close to 10,000 as they can. So if you're starting a race, you want to get as close to the starting line as you can. So that's my day 1. And day 2 is introducing the challenge and having the students fill out columns A through D. Column E should do all the work for them as far as calculating how much they're spending on their beginning investment. And they have $10,000, and that's in the instructions there down toward the bottom of the sheet. So then we move forward. It can be the next day. It can be a week later. I'm going to backpedal. I'm sorry. Usually at the end of when students have all spent their $10,000, I'll usually have, since it is a challenge, I will usually have students print a hard copy, and I will keep that hard copy. That just kind of serves as what they originally had. So that way, if students are tempted maybe later by that $10 gift card or whatever you got as your prize, if students are tempted to fudge some numbers later, you have a copy of what they did on day 1. So I'll usually have students print one. If you don't have a printer, they can submit one to you in a different way. Either way, just you want to have a teacher copy of what they did on day 1. When the game is over and when I declare a winner, I will usually audit the winner, which means I just look to make sure that their printout or whatever they had after the end of day 1, their original copy, I'll make sure that the numbers were right. I'll check historical data on the stocks and make sure that their number of shares match what they said, and that the prices are pretty legit. I realize the market might be open, so I might be a couple pennies off there, but I want to make sure their prices are legit and that their number shares are good. So that's what I do for an audit. Only takes a couple minutes. Usually the first place student isn't trying to cheat anything, but if I do find something amiss on the first place students, I will move down to the second place and audit the second place student. But then what I'll do after the first day where they've picked their stocks, they've spent $10,000 or the first couple days, is usually once a week. I like it to be on a Friday. Once a week, I will have students at the start of class, I will have them check their current prices. What is the stock worth today? And this only takes them 5 minutes, and I'll have them do it. My students are used to it. If they're doing the challenge, they come in on a Friday morning and they say, are we checking our stocks? And I say, for sure, check them out first thing. So usually within the first 5 minutes, students will have updated their current prices, and I don't have any problem with students changing these anytime they want. The current prices, whatever the current price is. But I'll have all of my students do it on a Friday. And then after the students have taken those first 5 minutes and updated their current prices, this is what I do. I will have all of my students, I will say, if you have over 10,000, stand up. And then hopefully you got students standing up, but if the market's been miserable, you might not have anybody over 10,000, and that's okay. You could adjust that number to who's got over 9,500, stand up. So you can play around with your number, but usually like in consistent times, I'll say everybody over $10,000, stand up. And then I'll say stay on your feet if you're over 10,100. So I'll have a few students sit down. Stay on your feet if you're above 10,200, 10,500. You know, you can work with it, but I'll do this so that students are getting up and moving. And you know, as students drop out, you get an idea of who your top 2 or 3 or 4 students are. And usually when I get down to 3 or 4 students, I'll say, well, how much do you actually have? And I'll ask that student, you know. And so the first student might say, I have $10,612. And then the second student, I have $10,647. So that'll give you an idea of who's in first. But then while you have these students on their feet, I will ask them, you know, who are your big gainers and who are your big losers? Or, you know, if I'm on the positive end, who are your big gainers? And then the students will say, well, I invested in Tesla. You know, I got them for $160 and now they're $190 and I bought 12 shares. And that opens the door to talk about what's going on in the stock market and why is Tesla up $30 a share. So that's fun, and it opens up the opportunity, and I don't mind spending 20 minutes, half hour every Friday going through and seeing what's up and what's down and what students are doing well. And we talk about business and we talk about the stock market and we talk about the economy, and it's a great opportunity. I'll usually have the losers stand up too, like everybody under 10,000. If you're under 10,000, stand up. If you're under 9,800, stay on your feet. If you're under 9,600, stay on your feet. And then you can get down to your couple biggest losers, so to speak. And that's worth discussion as well. I say, don't be ashamed. You guys don't know anything about the stock market. You're just guessing the way a lot of people just guess. So you didn't guess right. It's okay. No shame in being below $10,000. But then we'll get down and figure out what companies are tanking right now, and you can talk about why those companies are struggling. Look up in the news and see what's wrong with General Motors right now. How come their stock has dipped $2 in the past month or two? So I'll just do this kind of every Friday, have students update their current prices. Do this kind of stand up if you're above 10,000, stand up if you're below 10,000. Get down to the final 2 and talk about it. And it's a really fun, the kids look forward to it every Friday if that's what you're doing. And then, like I said, usually the last week, I'll pick an ending date and I'll crown a winner. I'll do an audit, but I'll crown a winner. So that's the way I run it. Like I said, I wouldn't be sharing it if I didn't think it worked really well. I think it does. Number one, it shows students how spreadsheets can be used as a tool with data that might be changing. This isn't some project that they do once and then they never visit again. This is something that they use on a regular basis, and that's good to see in a spreadsheet. And it opens up a lot of good discussion about the business world and about the economy, and students usually find that pretty interesting, regardless of how old they are. So my freshmen through my seniors all seem to enjoy it. Hope this helps. Comment if you have suggestions. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching. Good luck.